Hello, and welcome to the Sales Experts channel. I'm Liz Heiman, and today we're going to be talking about your B2B sales strategy for the new year. I don't know if you're new to the Sales Experts channel, but if you are, this is a great place to get information about sales, your sales organization, increasing sales, all kinds of things. This is a great group of experts, and I hope you'll explore a little bit more what's available to you through this channel. There are a couple of things that I'd like you to know. The first is that if you have questions, I encourage you to ask them. Look for the place where it says Ask Now. Fill in your questions, ask away. If you want more information about something I just said, or if you have another thing you'd like to discuss, or if you want to talk about something at the end, just put it in that Ask Now section and I'll get to it just as soon as I can. There's an attachment section. Take a look at that. You can download today's deck that we'll be using. So if you'd like to actually have your own version, you can do that. If you're having difficulty with the presentation, please look for the Bright Talk Help button. I'm not going to be able to help you with technical issues, but they will. So please, if you're having a problem, let them help you out. If anybody's having difficulty hearing me now, please let me know, and I'll see if I can adjust that. But otherwise, the folks at Bright Talk should be able to help you with any other technical difficulties. I encourage you at the end to go ahead and rate the presentation. We love your feedback. So there you go. I'm Liz Heiman, and my mission is to take the mystery out of sales. I'd like to make sales more manageable and more predictable for you. So today we're going to talk about things that will help with that. We're going to cover, under our discussion of B2B sales strategy for the new year, boy, I'm pushing buttons before I'm ready, how to think about 2020 sales goals, where to look for growth, how to get your sales team organized, and the who, what, and when of your plan. So 2021 is not going to be your typical year. We all know that already. So typically about this time of year, we start thinking about what do I need to do to make the new year what I want it to be. And this year, it's going to take a little bit of extra thinking and a little bit of extra planning. We already know 2020 was not what anybody expected. And while I'm hopeful and confident that 2021 will get better, I don't think that it's going to be very predictable. So we're going to have to come up with a really good strategy and then be nimble and agile and prepared to react as the economy changes and as our situation changes. So let's get some critical pieces in place so we're prepared for whatever comes along. But we're going to really, over the next few minutes that we're together, we're going to think about, how is next year going to be different? What could happen? What can I achieve? I already know it's not going to be one of those years where I can just put my head down and plow ahead just like I did in the past. We're going to really think about how are things different this year. I just cannot get this presentation to behave. So here we are. So the first thing we want to think about is where am I now? Because I can never make a strategy for going forward without having a really good assessment of where I am now. It's kind of like pulling out in the old-fashioned times when you pulled out a map. And now even your GPS, if your GPS doesn't know where you are, have you ever been driving and your GPS has you in the wrong place and it's telling you to turn, but there's no turn there? Well, if you're not really clear about where you are in this moment, it's really hard to make a plan to get where you want to go. So the first thing I want to do is take a few minutes and think about where we are right now. And I want to do that by making a comparison. So I want to think about 2019 and 2020. So if you could, and I know you don't know these numbers off the top of your head, and that's okay, you can look them up, but I want you to really think before you start making your plan to go forward. If I were to compare 2020 and 2019 or 2019 to 2020, I guarantee you're going to find some differences. Now, some companies have taken off. It's been the best year ever. If you sell outdoor pools that are above ground, you've had an incredible year. Work for Zoom, Zoom's had an incredible year. I was just shocked at another industry that somebody mentioned. But you guys can all think of industries that have just thrived. And others have stayed the same and others have suffered. So when you look at your company, I want you to go back to 2019 and compare your actual overall revenue to 2020. What's the difference? What's the gap? And then I want you to look at the number of customers. The revenue may have increased or decreased. The number of customers may have done the same thing or something different. Take a good look at that. And then look at what's your average customer value. Has that changed? Has that gone up? Has it gone down? And then the final thing I want you to do is look at your average customer profit. Now, if you have some time, it would be really good to see, what are some of the differences, which customers have become more profitable, which less, which have become more valuable, which have become less valuable. That's kind of a bigger project, but just get a sense of where you are right now, right? So am I more profitable? Am I less profitable? Am I doing more work for less money or less work for more money? Do I have more customers in order to hit the numbers? Do I have less customers to help me hit the numbers? So sort of think that through, because once you have a really good sense of that, you can think about, well, is what I have and the direction I'm going the right one, or is it different? Do we need more revenue? Do we need fewer customers and more money? Do we need more customers and less revenue per customer, but more recurring revenue? So really think about that information and how does that shape where you're going from here? And again, if you have any questions about this, I encourage you, share them with me. I'm happy to answer them. So once you have a good feeling for where you sit right now, like how does 2020 and 2019 compare? I think I just skipped. There we go. Then we can begin to think about our 2021 goals. We still have to do a little bit more work about where I am right now and what's sort of happening, but we can, once we get that solid groundwork, that solid understanding, we can start to think about what are the 2021 goals. And I like to start by organizing things, putting things into categories. So the first thing I want to do as I'm thinking about this is I want to start making some lists. So if I take all of my customers and I look at the year 2020, which customers have I lost? Which customers have decreased in value? Which customers have pretty much maintained the same amount of revenue or purchase? Which ones grew and which ones are brand new, so I don't really know yet. But I want you to start categorizing so you can understand what's actually happening in your world. If you put things in categories, you'll start to see trends. You'll start to see industries and differences and size of companies and all different things that might impact how they got into that category. The other thing I really want you to think about is if I lost them, did I lose them because they had a really bad year and it wouldn't have mattered? Did I lose them because they went out of business? Did I lose them because I didn't do a good job? And is there any chance to get that lost business back? Because if I can, that may be a lot easier than some other business. This year is not a good time to assume that what's lost is permanently lost. It's just a weird year. So I would go back and look at lost and see if there's any hope for those. And then let's look at the companies that have decreased. Are they going to keep decreasing? Are they doing worse and worse and worse? Or is the potential that they're going to begin to rebuild their company, get better standing, and they'll, like their footing is better and they can spend a little bit more money? So might they go back to the level they were before at least, or maybe increase? And if I look at the companies that have maintained, you know, are they still going to be here, or are they have they just barely maintained, and are they going to go away? So look at each of these categories. Of the customers that grew, did they grow because it was a crazy year and they needed a lot of extra help? Or did they grow because they continued to grow in their normal growth pattern? And how will that impact how much potential growth I can look for from them? And then again, look at our new companies. What is their situation? Will they grow with me? Will they maintain with me? What's going to happen? And granted, you may have hundreds and hundreds of customers, or you may have a handful of customers. If you have hundreds and hundreds, you probably can't do a deep dive into every one of them, but maybe your sales reps can do a deep dive into their list. But get a good sense of what's going on. And again, look for trends, look for anything that will help you build on the situation that you're in right now to get you into a better position. How do you better position yourself for the future? The next thing is, boy, it is not happy today. There's another way that you can look at existing customers. And so we just looked at our customers from our perspective, which ones increased, which ones decreased. But you can also look at them from oh dear, sorry, Flash Player tried to take over my computer. I'm not sure what it was doing. But if we look at our customers from their perspective and we say, hey, which of our customers have closed? There's nothing we can do to help them. But some of those employees might have gone someplace else and they might be able to take us with them. But if I think about, okay, those are gone. Now if I look at the customers that are struggling, which of my customers are struggling? Why are they struggling? Is there anything I can do to help them? So they may have just cut spending. We had customers that just said, look, our investors said we have to cut spending. And it wasn't long before they said, okay, we needed to cut spending, but not on sales support. So could you come back and help us grow our sales? So you want to look at the customers that are struggling and what your relationship can be with them. Understand why they're struggling. Is there anything that you can do to help that would improve your relationship, that would help them, and maybe in the long run, get more revenue from them? But you also could look at which of our customers are doing just fine through the pandemic and which of our customers did great, and how do we relate to what's going on with them? How can we use that or leverage that or position ourselves to make the most of the situation that they're in? But rather than starting with where we are looking at them, let's start at where they are looking at us. And it sounds the same, but it's really different. When we start with a perspective that's all about our customer, it changes the way we relate to them and the way they relate to us. So if we do that in terms of our existing customers, we can also do that in terms of the industries that we're pursuing. So if we look at industry, if we look at our customers by industry, or our target market by industry, and we say, if I'm selling to restaurants and bars, there's probably a lot of them closing, right? So maybe that shouldn't be my focus right now. Maybe I should do a little bit of work there and put my focus somewhere else. Which companies or which industries, which verticals are struggling, and why are they struggling? And can I help with their struggle, or should I find companies that aren't struggling? Which ones are doing okay? Which ones are doing great? So rather than thinking now about your individual customers, think about your target audiences, your target markets, and figure out what's going on in those industries. And based on that, where should I be putting my energy? Right? This will help you as you begin to build your strategy and you think about your goals. Again, maybe my goals in bars and restaurants goes way down, but my goals for swimming pool companies goes way up, or for companies like Zoom that are helping people with virtual sales. So really thinking about what's going on in the industries that I'm currently targeting and how does that frame my reaction or my behavior. And what we're going to do with that is based upon the assessment that you just made. And I know you didn't just make it, I'm just throwing stuff out. But if you went through that entire process we just talked about, and you were able to make an assessment what would your revenue be next year just based on existing customers, existing current target market? What could you achieve, and what resources would be required to achieve that? Because we can't think about growth and we can't think about where to go from here until we really understand how much revenue and growth we can get from our existing client base and our existing target market. So once you've done that, you can begin to think about what's the next step. And you can begin to think about growth. So let's make that leap and talk about, all right, so if this is what we can get from the audience that we have and the customers that we have, where should we be looking for growth? And again, I want to remind you that this is going to take some real thinking. This is not plow ahead like we always have. This is really thinking about the world differently. How do we think about growth in new and different ways than we've thought about it before? And I want to start you with a really simple equation. So growth is determined by the market demand available and the resources you have to meet it. And when I talk about resources, resources are really a number of things. First is how much product can you deliver? And maybe that's not first. First may be how much can you actually sell? If you don't have the resources to sell it, it doesn't matter how much product you have. And if you don't have enough product, it probably doesn't matter how much ability you have to sell it. So look at the resources you have to sell and deliver before you start thinking about growth, because you may need to think about growing or increasing resources in order to grow. So in the last section, I think I asked you what resources would it take to maintain that business that you had or to grow the existing business that you had. So now we're going to think about, of the resources that we have already allocated, how much is left for growing, and where would we need to reallocate resources toward growth. And some of that may be, some of you may have gotten rid of salespeople or any other number of people in your company, and now it's time to think about bringing back people, either those same people that went away or maybe people that have a different skill set or relationship set that may help you reach these new growth goals that you're going to put in place. So I'm going to start by thinking about what are the opportunities that are out there. Do you have an opportunity to grow existing customers? What potential is there, and which customers have the greatest potential to grow? I would want, before I did anything else, I would want to really think about, make a list of your top 10, 20, 30, 50 customers and think about, is there room for them to grow, and what would it take to grow them? And then what is the potential in your current target market? So you know what you've done in past years. What do you think this year in your current target market, what do you think this year could actually happen? And what would it take to get there? And the next thing is to think about growth in your existing products. So do I have customers that I'm only selling one product to that I could sell more products to? Do I have target markets that I've only been targeting with one product when I could be selling other products? Or do I have existing products that I haven't really found the right target market for, or that there could be potential other target markets? So start with what we have. We always start with what we have and figure out how to grow that. And then we do the next step, which is, okay, which new markets make sense to go after? Which markets are growing? Which markets are shrinking but could grow if I could help them? Where do I want to be? Where is there room? Where is there potential pent-up demand for what I have that I haven't leveraged in the past? And then you might think about new products. May or may not make sense, but I know a lot of companies that said, well, what I was making before doesn't make sense, and I'm going to make maps, or I'm going to make PPPs, or whatever they're called, or I'm going to, add a product that I would have never thought about selling before, but makes sense in this environment. And not just this COVID environment, but what's next? How can we close our eyes and imagine what's coming next? And what will that mean for you if people are working from home more, and some people are going to go back to work, but some people are going to still work from home, what will that mean in terms of a new product or a new opportunity for you? So just, that's the places that I want you to look. So start with where you are now. Where's there growth in your existing arena? And then what new arenas could you look for growth in? That's kind of the easiest way to think about it. The next piece, there we go, that I want you to think about is messaging. So the messaging that you've used in the past may not work going into 2021. So you may have changed your messaging in 2020, or maybe you didn't, but you may need to revise it or change it again going into 2021. And thinking about a variety of things. So first, for my existing customers, are their priorities the same? Or have their priorities changed? And what will their priorities look like in 2021? So what may have been the most important reason for them to do something in the past may not be the most important reason now. For instance, in the past, I might have been looking for ease of use. And today, my priority might be security. Well, if you have a company that can handle both ease of use and security, but in the past, security was an extra that they weren't really worried about, and now security is a core primary concern, you need to change your messaging to match what's going on in their world. So the messaging, the value propositions, the marketing that was happening before may not be the same that you're going to be using. So if you go back and you look at the things we just talked about, I'm going to drag you backward for a second. Growth into existing customers, what messaging would have to change in order to achieve that? Can you use the same messaging you've always had, or does it need to be different? Growth into target markets, growth for existing products. Could we grow the sales of existing products if we introduce them as solving problems that we haven't been talking about before? What about new markets? Will new markets require a totally different kind of messaging or the same messaging? So don't assume that the messaging you have is going to take you where you want to go. In this growth mindset that you have right now, think about messaging that will take you where you want to go. So based upon that assessment that we just did about where the potential for growth could be, what are your best opportunities for growth? How are you going to prioritize your effort? And I think it's really important. We get really excited about, oh, I could do this, or I could do that, or this would be a great place to go. But what we forget is you can only do so much. And I want to take you back again to the concept of your resources. So you have a limited amount of resources, whether it's marketing, sales, or production, or even accounting. You have a limited resource base. So based upon that, how are you going to pick the best opportunities for your growth? Where are you going to focus? And what would you have to do to achieve it? The next piece of this is really the question about how much growth. So knowing where I can grow is one thing. How much can I grow? And how much do I want to grow? How much pent up or not pent up demand is out there? And how much resource do I have to meet it? So as we're setting our goals, put them in the perspective of the resources you have or the resources you can get. If this is a great opportunity for you to grow right now in this moment, then it may be time to get the resources to make that growth. It's really, the world is a funny place. And if you identify that this is the time to grow, then act on it. 2021 may be a survival year for you. It may be a huge opportunity for you. It may be, I hope not, but it could be a catastrophic year for your company. What are you going to do to make the right decisions to leverage the opportunities that exist for you now. How are you going to prioritize? How are you going to allocate resources? And do you need to get more resources? Is this the moment to get more resources to achieve this growth? Don't assume that this is going to be a bad year. Don't assume that things won't work. Assume that you have some control, and the control is, where are you putting your effort and your energy? How much growth do I want, and where do I want it to be? That's being strategic. And when you have strategy, when you have realistic strategy based in reality, based in facts and figures, you can actually make a really solid strategy that will take you there. One of the most important things is, once you have your strategy, once you have your plan and you figure out where you want to grow, how you want to do it, it's time to get your team organized around those goals. So again, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of setting priorities. Not only do you need to set the priorities, but you need to make sure your team is really clear about what those priorities are and how each of them is positioned around those priorities. So if one of the priorities is opening a new market, then your team needs to know which of them are responsible for opening a new market. And make sure they're really clear. Is that a higher priority than growing their existing accounts, or is that a lower priority than growing their existing accounts? Make sure their priorities are very clear. The next thing is using tools to get them organized around those priorities. So I am a fan of the concept of a funnel. So I hope most of you have some sort of a way to manage your leads. I like to use the concept of a funnel and to put it into a CRM. But the very first thing is to go back again, look at all of the leads that you have, and that includes customers that you've just identified that you want to grow, and put them into your funnel and make sure the stages are accurate. Rethink them. We call this kind of funnel triaging, right? So where I thought everything was may or may not be where it is now. So we're starting the new year. Let's start over. Let's look at each customer and say, which potential products could I be selling to them, and where am I in the process of selling it to them? Am I prospecting them on this? Am I qualifying? Are they qualified and I'm trying to cultivate and close that? Am I in the final phases of closing that? And is it really going to close in the next 30 to 90 days? So take a look at every single lead that you have and make sure it's in the proper stage in your funnel or your CRM. And then prioritize those leads by the potential to close. So give them a rating. Like, they may be in prospect, but you really think there's a great potential for that. Then market as such. It may be in the closing stages, but you've been trying and you don't know if this is really ever going to close or not. Then rate it that way. And make sure that you're allocating your time that your team is allocating their time to the stuff that you can move through the funnel and close. And prioritize out those that aren't going to close, because you don't have time for them. You simply don't have time in a year like this to waste on leads that are never going to close. Better to get new leads into the funnel, get fresh ideas and fresh communication, and bring some new leads through from prospect to close. Make sure that your team is allotting time at all stages. One of the things that happens, the more companies are worried about money, about revenue, about closing, the more they focus on the bottom of the funnel. And the more dire their situation becomes, because if you do not have stuff coming in the top of the funnel and moving through the funnel at the appropriate velocity, at the speed that you need it to be going through the funnel, or that is appropriate for it to go through the funnel, the more likely you are every single month, every single quarter to get to the bottom of the funnel and go, we don't have enough, stuff isn't ready to close. So part of making sure that you have a really great year is making sure that your team prioritizes all of the stages of the funnel, all of the leads in the funnel that are likely to close, and all of the activities that support moving it toward close. And again, you will have to carefully watch the progression of the leads through the funnel with your team, because if you don't, stuff will stall, or it will continue to take energy and not keep moving. And so make the time. Stay with your team. Help them prioritize. Help them stay organized. Help them stay focused. It's not going to be an easy year, but with your focus, they'll be able to focus on the things that will take you to the point where you want to be, to close the leads that you need to close and to achieve the goals that you've set. And again, I'm going to reinforce the idea that you need to coach and manage your team's success. So if you have not learned to coach yet, it's time. It's time to learn the difference between coaching and managing. When you coach your team, you're helping them find solutions to problems that they face day in and day out. And when you coach them, you're positive, you're proactive, you're supportive, you're positive, and you're helping them create the mindset that will make them successful. When you manage them, which is also important during this time, it's helping them focus on priorities, making sure that you have the information needed, making sure they're following the steps, making sure they're following the process. But by coaching and managing them towards success, you will achieve the goals you want to achieve. When you let down on your coaching and managing, your team will let down and their results will fall. So then let's think about, if that's the case, now we really need to think about the what, the who, and the when. Because having that bigger strategy, even having the priority set, doesn't tell people how to get things done. And although I want you to make lists and categories, lists are not going to be enough. They're just not going to be enough. You're going to need to have some very specific action plans to get you through 2021 and achieve the goals you want to achieve. So my belief is that the best thing you can do for your team is to help them break it down. So if you go back and you think about that funnel, make sure there's an action for every lead all the time. Every time you look at the funnel, every stage in that funnel, make sure that there's an action that will move that sale forward. And that's not follow-up. It's more specific action about who you're following up with, what you're trying to achieve, what message matters to them. Make sure you have a timeline for all of your actions. So if there's an action, there's a timeline, and it's on the calendar. And somebody, hopefully you, are checking to make sure those actions are really happening. They're not falling behind. When you have bigger projects, when you have bigger sales that are going to require communicating with a lot of people, make a plan. Actually plot it out with your sales team and figure out what the steps are to move that forward, who's going to do them, when they're going to do them by. So break it down into doable pieces. And then assign each action to a person and set a date. And again, I cannot reinforce the importance of watching the timelines. Hitting your goals for 2021 is an elephant. You have to break it down into bite-sized pieces, or you will not achieve it. And that's really the bottom line is get your strategy in place, figure out what your goals are, how you want to achieve them, prioritize the actions that will get you there, organize it, and break it down into doable pieces. That's how you will create your plan. Now that I said that, what I haven't done is given you bite-sized pieces that you can follow. So if you look in the resources section of this event, you will find a few things. The first is the 7 steps to a successful sales strategy article. And this article is actually on the Alex Heiman LLC website. She's my business partner, and the new brand that we have is Regarding Sales. But if you go back to the Alex Heiman LLC website, where this link will take you, you will find this article. This article breaks down your sales strategy process step by step so you can follow it. And if you go to that article, you can download the 7 steps to a successful sales strategy guide. And it actually has a workbook that you can follow and fill the answers in. It's a little different than what we just talked about because it's about creating a sales strategy from scratch, but the pieces are all basically the same. The next thing is an article on the Regarding Sales website called 3 Elements of a B2B Strategy. And that article talks about positioning. Things that you need to position yourself. It's going to talk about value proposition and those kinds of things that will help your salespeople say the right things to the few people that you have the opportunity to talk to. It will help you position yourselves in the marketplace to be successful. The next article that you'll find is also on the Regarding Sales website, and it's called Managing Your Business with the Funnel. And I've talked to you throughout this process a little bit about being a coach and being a manager, but this article really breaks down what does it mean to manage your funnel and the leads in your funnel and manage your team around the funnel so that you can hit your goals. And the very last thing you'll find is a scheduling link. You can go to that scheduling link and schedule a 30-minute session with me. There's no cost, there's no obligation, but what it will do is give you 30 minutes to ask me the questions that maybe you didn't feel like asking here, or maybe just help you get started. I find that when you're talking strategically, when we're talking about creating a strategy, getting started can be really hard. And it probably will only take 3 or 4 question and answers to get you moving in the right direction. I encourage you to take me up on this. I'm happy to do it, and it will make a huge difference in your ability to get your sales strategy going for 2021 quickly so that you have the results sooner rather than later. So again, I haven't seen any questions. If you have questions, please, now is a great time to put them in. If not, here's some ways that you can connect with me. So I'm Liz Heiman. I'm the CEO and Chief I'm the Chief Sales Strategist for Regarding Sales. This is my phone number, 775-852-5020. My cell phone is 960-7353. You can email me at liz@regarding-sales.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Liz Heiman on LinkedIn and Twitter, and Facebook is Regarding Sales. So if you would like to communicate with me any of these ways, I encourage you, make sure you tell me how you found me so I know, and I'd be happy to chat with you when you have questions. If you haven't connected with me, go ahead and do that. Go to LinkedIn, find Liz Heiman. I think I'm the only one. Regarding Sales, you'll recognize the logo. It's right here down at the bottom. And go ahead and connect with me and say, hey, I was at your webinar, and I'd be happy to connect with you and answer your questions. So we're coming up on 12:38. We have just a couple minutes left. If you have any questions, again, please put them in the Ask Me Now section. Otherwise, send me an email, liz@regarding-sales.com, and I will look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.